What's up, good folks? Hopefully everybody is doing them in the most bona fide way that you know how. I actually had I actually came across some videos in regards to Kevin Gates, and I would love to I would love to express my perspective on the most recent news and topics about Kevin Gates. Now, I happen to be a fan of Kevin Gates, and I like some of his music. I actually do. And when he was with his ex-wife Drika, I was absolutely in favor and support of their union. I love black love. I love black union. I love the black family. I love the idea of the black family. I love the idea of black community. I love the idea of black everything that is righteous unification. And especially, when it comes to love, when it comes to black love and the black family. So I really admired that. And then, there were these these news reports and headlines that was talking about, the separation from him and his wife, and he had been with her for a very long time. And being hearing the most recent, news and media and things that's been shared in regards to, the two of them, it sounds a bit, unfortunate. Separations can definitely be for the better, right? And then sometimes, it could be for the worse. And in this case, I would say that it's cheaper to keep her, right? Cheaper to keep her. But as far as, peace go, monetarily doing the family thing, doing the partnership thing, as long as it's healthy and righteous. And then, having your peace intact, having a peace of mind, right? In these type of situations, sometimes it costs people, their peace, and money does not solve everything. It solves a lot of things. It does not solve everything. So, I don't think that money can buy you peace. I think that in a situation such as Kevin Gates' situation with him and his ex-wife, I don't think that getting a divorce and separating from your ex-wife and then jumping into another marriage as soon as, he did was a smart move. I don't think that that's healthy. I think that creates codependency and attachments, unnecessary attachments. Now, grown people are going to do what they want to do, and that's their business. But as far as what is healthy and what is righteous, I would advise, or I would think that, taking the time to heal and to process and letting all of the things of the past, or all of the things of your previous relationship, and not just a relationship, but a sacred union, a marriage, right? Letting all of that process and letting that take place first versus jumping into another union, another sacred union, partnership, with another woman. Now, it's very normal as human beings for us to crave community, relationship, friendships, because we're social beings, but it's also very much in our human nature. I don't think that there's anything wrong with one wanting to have certain partnerships, connections, or even friendships. But after being in a union and a marriage for such a significant or such a substantial amount of time, I would think that, doing some introspecting and going inward and seeing what it is that you need, or what is it that you may not be healed from, and what you may need to heal from in, your previous union, and especially because of how long it actually lasted, and the things that are also an investment, such as the kids, such as, finances, businesses, properties, etc., all of the above. These are things to be considered, but a lot of times what we see is people getting out of one relationship and jumping into another relationship for a lot of reasons. One of the common reasons is for for comfort. A lot of times there's a codependency, there is a trauma, or there is hurt, or there is pain, and there's a lot of baggage from that previous relationship that is not being addressed. And such as in relationships, it is also true in other aspects of life. It is very common in human behavior where when we experience undesirable situations or undesirable events and situations, things that doesn't make us feel good, or things that even creates trauma, it's hard to introspect, and it's hard to face that and to do the work and face that head on, especially the things that do not feel good. So a lot of times, we run from, and society even glorify and encourages one to run from the things that hurt them and run from their pain. Right? Communication is, the primary key. In my opinion, communication is one of the best skills to have in building relationships and in connections, or sustaining, preserving, all of the above. But I think that a lot of us can agree that a lot of people have communication issues. They have problems with communicating. So that's already, the majority of the battle that still has to be fought, right? So one cannot communicate, and then one also doesn't know how one feels, or one doesn't want to check in with oneself to ask oneself, or to figure out what one feels or what one needs. It's easier to numb yourself and to ignore the discomfort and the things that you're feeling. There are a million things in this world that you can do to distract yourself from questioning yourself, from introspecting, from identifying what it is that you need to identify, what it is that you need to touch on, what it is that you need to address or confront within yourself. For example, when people go and get a rebound, essentially, because that's what it is, right? It's very common. You get out of a relationship, or in his situation, you get out of a marriage that lasted for multiple years, and you go and not only jump into another relationship, you actually get into another marriage. So what is it that you're looking for? Is there a partnership that was failed in your previous marriage and you're looking for a partnership in your new relationship? Or are you like a lot of people where they're looking to soothe, or they're looking for comfort for some type of pain, right? But when the ego is involved and when pride is involved, people don't have the maturity, or even they don't have the capacity or the emotional intelligence to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I don't like. This is a trauma, or I feel negatively about this way, or this gives me pain. No, we don't, should I say, a lot of people don't introspect that way, or address things that way, or even able to acknowledge what they're feeling. So what do? They know that they don't feel right about a multiple things, right? A multitude of things. So they go and move to the next thing, the next distraction, or the next person, whatever, what have you, to distract them from what they're feeling. So with the whole rebound thing, it's either a jealousy, it's a control thing, it's it could be an insecurity, if a person was rejected, or if someone, broke up with the other person, or someone was the one who was divorcing that person, the divorcee could feel, insecure about that, or inadequate. And then, as it relates to men, it's easier to hurt a man's pride than it is a woman's pride, in my opinion. I mean, on a case-by-case basis, but speaking generally, right? So, I think that's a lot of reasons why people tend to look for a rebound or a replacement, someone who can help fill that void, someone who can help soothe that pain, someone who can help them to try to get over or forget about whatever it is that is causing them pain or trauma or the memories, right? And as I said before, when the ego is involved, and pride, men don't tend to, outwardly say, this is what pains me, or, this is what hurts me, but I'm actually willing to communicate to rectify it. Instead, it always has to be some trophy. It always has to be, another woman and jumping into another relationship, and it's just not healthy, because then these patterns continue to repeat itself, right? And then, in general, a lot of things that we see is there's more trauma that is created in new relationships and new so-called partnerships, and it's not successful because the trauma and the issues from the previous relationship and marriage was not addressed, and it was not healed. So that's a lot of problems in a lot of relationships, whether that be a marriage, a relationship, a connection, etc. A lot of times people, they prolong the healing process because they can't communicate, because they refuse to communicate, because they refuse to be accountable. But one thing I will say, and one thing that a lot of us should appreciate, is when you come across someone who has the maturity, the strength, and the mindset to be able to be accountable for wherever they're wrong at, and be able to communicate that or express that to whomever necessary. And what that does is it helps the other party to be able to heal. But when people disregard it, and when they refuse to acknowledge and address certain things, when they choose to sweep things under the rug, then it just prolongs the healing process. Unless you are a very proactive person and very, very self-aware, and you can do the introspection and self-work on yourself, or to reach out to a professional that can help you with those emotions and the traumas and whatever the transition is. When people refuse to be accountable for where they're wrong, they create more trauma in other relationships. So then that becomes a pattern, and then more trauma, and then more other families that are created on trauma. So getting another partner, bringing the traumatic patterns and the negative patterns and the toxicity into a new relationship, because those things from the previous relationship were not fully healed. And then there are children that are born, and it's a trauma bond, and it is a codependency, and all of these extra attachments, soul ties, all of the above. And again, the part that's really sad is that there are children that are being conceived and being born into more toxic situations, and that's how we get broken families, right? And then the woman does it, the man does it. People have traumas, and then people will have traumas, and then they will refuse to properly address their traumas and to work through that and to heal that. And then they'll create more of those traumas and more of those trauma bonding and those patterns and all of that negativity and toxicity in extra relationships. And then a lot of the same people are the ones that are unaccountable, and they do not have the ability to acknowledge where they're wrong, or to have self-accountability. So that hinders self-growth, and then, as I said, it hinders the healing of the other party. And really, it with the whole, considering the self-growth thing, it actually hinders the healing process of the person. Everyone involved should have a great level of self-accountability, really, because if you don't have self-accountability, you're not growing, right? It's not really, it's not a it's not a gradual growth. It's not a gradual thing. It's not really a smooth thing, and it hinders growth when you can't be accountable, and that comes with maturity. That comes with being self-aware. That comes with maturity. So, with Kevin Gates, I feel like, and as the older folks would say, it's cheaper to keep her. And I absolutely agree with that. I don't think that his ex-wife, Drika, I don't think that she should receive any negativity, any negative energy, or any rejection from Kevin Gates. I don't think that I haven't heard anything where there was any, anything that was compromising to her reputation. Everybody knows that she's like, her middle name is like Unbothered, being a very zen queen. Just, appearing to be an all-around good person, and, just a good woman, and possibly a really great partner. Now, a woman that, was married to Kevin Gates and actually, had his children. So, whatever it is that she's saying that she needs for support financially for herself and the children should be granted. Absolutely. Because obviously she has to raise and to take care of his children. And also, I'm sure that there were assets and there's properties and things that has to be maintained. So, there's a lot of things that has to be considered, and there's a lot of things that have to be taken care of. So, I think that she deserves I think that she deserves a great level of respect from Kevin Gates, and I believe that she does. I believe that she absolutely deserves the financial support that she is requesting. It would be such a beautiful thing if people in our community would be more self-accountable and more self-aware, and some people grow apart from each other. Some unions, relationships, they expire. Some people outgrow each other, or there's a million reasons why relationships and marriages end. It just does. But at the same time, I feel like what people in our community should do is to take the initiative to be more intentional about in these transitions to be more peaceful and to have more emotional intelligence, meaning that in the transition, if everybody is happy, everybody is healthy, right? The emotions literally should be put to the side. And, focusing on the, co-parenting aspect, even trying to keep it so cordial and even on a level of friendship where the family may be maintained in a different way, even though there's no longer a marriage with the husband and the wife, but it still provides for a family atmosphere and a family environment for the children, right? Not where it's been an ugly separation or it's been an ugly marriage. So, all of these negative feelings and all of this, the toxic behaviors and just everything that follows that, ensues. But promoting, peace and harmony and support, even if you're not friends, you're not, that's not your best friend, or why is it that it has to be so common and it has to be so accepted that when people divorce or when they separate, it has to be, on a negative, it has to be based on something negative. It has to end so nasty. And, why is it that people can't say, you know what, we can agree to disagree, but you go your way, I'm gonna go my way, and we're going to prioritize the children, and we're going to keep it about the children instead of a get back or using the children as a pawn. And all of these things that we see all the time. So they say, it's cheaper to keep her, but definitely considering the financial aspect, but then your mental, your peace of mind, and especially when when you fumble someone that is a really good person, not just a good woman, but a queen, right? Yeah, when you fumble a queen, you made a pretty big mistake. But yeah, I just wanted to speak on Kevin Gates and the whole situation. It's a very common thing, and a lot of situations could be prevented. There will be more peace, and there will be a lot more smoother transitions if people put their pride to the side, put their ego, take off the ego a little bit, be more self-aware, more self-accountable. And emotional intelligence is it's a great thing to practice. It's a great thing to have, because everything doesn't warrant an emotional response. And a lot of people have issues because they're emotional. They're overly emotional about certain things. And we have the right to to be emotional about certain things, because we feel that it's a natural thing. But are you able to acknowledge your emotions? Are you able to identify what it is that you're feeling? Are you able to acknowledge what it is that you're feeling? And even more importantly, after you acknowledge that, are you able to do whatever it is necessary? Do you know what to do and how to do it? What to do to work through your emotions instead of dumping it on other people, whether that be blatantly, outright, out loud, or even, people becoming overly emotional and doing things subliminally. The tit for tat and just all of the ugly nastiness and the toxicity. But being able to identify and acknowledge what it is that you're feeling, and knowing how to move about in a very mature adult way. When you don't know what it is that you're feeling, you're not able to articulate that, you're not able to communicate that, then we stuff it down and we suppress it. And then society is very common in society where you can go choose your vice of choice to distract you from what it is that you're feeling. Oh, and there's so many vices. There's so many things that can distract us that's not healthy for us, right? And then when you have all of these things to numb you and to distract you, what do? You keep creating the same cycle and the same loop over and over and over again. That's what happens. But if you cannot identify what it is that you're feeling or what your issues are, you can't face your demons, you can't confront your demons, you will continue to numb it, and you will continue to distract yourself, and you will continue to suppress it, and you will continue to stuff it down like a lot of us do. And then one day you're going to wake up, or you might already be, awake and going on about your day, and then something will just hit you out of nowhere. And then you're not going to have a choice but to face whatever it is that you need to face, and whatever it is that you need to confront within yourself. And sometimes after, it's called like, checking in with yourself, or, as they say, check yourself or you wreck yourself. Nothing wrong with that. Self-awareness, introspection, all of that good stuff. Check yourself. After you checked yourself, and you know that you checked yourself, and you handle whatever it is that you need to handle within yourself, then if you need to go confront somebody else, or to, say what it is that you need to say what it is that you need to say, and communicate that. But, a part of healing, or a part of addressing things, is absolutely communicating what it is that you need, or whatever it is that is bothering you, what have you. Now, if you get to a point where there is no more talking, because you have done all the talking that you can do, and you're not, whomever you're communicating to is not receptive to what it is that you're trying to communicate, or there is no change, and there is no growth, and there is no resolve that is happening, then I would not advise one to continue to do the same thing that is just not working, right? But for those people, which there are many, especially when we're talking about, relationships and traumas and codependency and attachments, obviously communicating what it is that you need to communicate, saying what it is that you need to say, but also being able to identify what it is that you need and what it is that you're feeling, instead of ignoring it and then letting it fester, and then continuing to unconsciously, subconsciously let that manifest and let that express itself in your day-to-day life, and especially in other relationships. This is what we see happen all the time. So I hope that Kevin Gates, I hope that it, to say the least, and to simply put it, I hope that he does the right thing, because I think that, from what the world has seen, we've seen that his ex-wife I think that she's a good one, and she's definitely a queen. I think that she deserves a lot better than what she's getting, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So that's what I have to say about that. We definitely need to do better. Peace.